The perfect facade warriors of truth. Welcome to a story that will shake you to your core. Before we begin this journey of betrayal and redemption, tell us in the comments where you're watching from around the world. Your support means everything to us. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button because we bring you the most powerful stories of human resilience. Now, let's dive into Emma's world. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows of the modest two-story house on Willowbrook Street. Emma Torres stood at the counter, packing lunch for her 7-year-old daughter Sophie, humming softly to herself. At 29, she had built what she believed was the perfect life. Her graphic design business was thriving. Her husband, Marcus, was successful in real estate development, and little Sophie was the light of both their lives. "Morning, beautiful," Marcus said, wrapping his arms around Emma's waist from behind. His cologne filled her senses, the same scent she had fallen in love with 8 years ago. "You're up early today." Emma leaned back against his chest, feeling safe and loved. "Sophie has that field trip to the Science Museum. I wanted to make sure she had everything she needed." She turned in his arms, studying his face. Marcus was still as handsome as the day they met, with his dark hair and warm brown eyes that seemed to hold secrets. "You're such a good mother," he murmured, kissing her forehead. "I'm lucky to have you both." Something in his tone made Emma pause. There was a weight to his words that felt different, almost like he was saying goodbye. But before she could analyze it further, Sophie bounded into the kitchen, her backpack bouncing against her small frame. "Daddy, you're squishing Mommy," Sophie giggled, causing both parents to laugh. "Just giving her extra love," Marcus replied, ruffling Sophie's dark curls. "Have fun at the museum today, princess." As Marcus left for work, Emma noticed he checked his phone 3 times before reaching his car. It was a small thing, but it nagged at her. He had been doing that more often lately, guarding his phone like it contained state secrets. Later that morning, after dropping Sophie at school, Emma returned home to work on a logo design for a local restaurant. The house felt unusually quiet, and she found herself thinking about the subtle changes in Marcus over the past few months. He worked later, smiled less, and seemed distant even when he was physically present. The doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. Emma opened the door to find a delivery man holding an expensive-looking bouquet of red roses. "Emma Torres?" he asked. "Yes, that's me. These are for you, Mom." Someone's feeling romantic today. Emma's heart fluttered as she took the flowers. Marcus had always been thoughtful, but flowers on a random Wednesday seemed unusual. She searched for a card, but found none. When she called Marcus to thank him, his response was strange. "Flowers? Oh, right. Yes, I hope you like them," he said, sounding distracted. "Listen, I have to go. Big meeting today." The line went dead before Emma could respond. She stared at the roses, beautiful, but somehow hollow without the warmth she expected. From such a gesture, they felt more like an apology than an expression of love. That afternoon, while organizing their home office, Emma discovered something that made her blood run cold. Marcus had left his laptop open, and an email notification popped up on the screen. The sender's name made her stomach drop. Rosewood Private Investigators. Her hands trembled as she clicked on the email, expecting to find something about a client or business matter. Instead, she found a detailed report about her own activities. The subject line read, "Target Surveillance Update, Emma Torres." The report documented her daily routines, her work schedule, even her coffee shop preferences. Someone had been watching her, studying her like a specimen under a microscope. But why would Marcus hire a private investigator to spy on his own wife? Emma's mind raced through possibilities. Was he planning a surprise? Was he suspicious about something? Or was this something darker, more sinister than she could imagine? She quickly forwarded the email to her personal account, and deleted the forwarded message from Marcus's sent folder. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. In 8 years of marriage, she had never violated Marcus's privacy, never searched through his things or questioned his activities. Now she felt like she was drowning in questions with no answers. When Sophie came home from school, chattering excitedly about the dinosaur exhibit, Emma struggled to focus on her daughter's words. How could she maintain normalcy when her world was tilting on its axis? "Mommy, are you okay?" Sophie asked, her innocent eyes filled with concern. "You look sad." Emma forced a smile, kneeling to Sophie's level. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking about work. Tell me more about the museum." As Sophie launched into detailed descriptions of fossils and ancient creatures, Emma made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't confront Marcus directly, not yet. She needed more information, needed to understand what was really happening in her own life. That evening, Marcus came home later than usual, claiming he had been showing properties to potential buyers. But when Emma hugged him, she noticed his shirt smelled different. Not just his cologne, but something else. Something that reminded her of her mother's favorite perfume. The thought was so absurd she immediately dismissed it. Her mother Victoria lived 2 hours away and rarely visited. There was no reason for Marcus to smell like her perfume. Emma was being paranoid, letting her imagination run wild because of that strange email. But as they sat down for dinner, Emma found herself studying Marcus's face, looking for signs of deception she had never noticed before. The way he avoided direct eye contact when talking about his day, how he kept his phone face down on the table, something he had never done before. The casual way he mentioned needing to work this Saturday, when he usually spent weekends with his family. After dinner, while Marcus showered, Emma did something that felt like crossing a sacred line. She went through his jacket pockets. Hidden in the inner pocket, she found a receipt from an expensive restaurant across town. The date was yesterday, and it was for 2 meals, not a business lunch for multiple people. The receipt listed items she recognized as her mother's favorites: salmon with lemon butter, a specific wine Victoria always ordered, and tiramisu for dessert. Emma's hands began to shake again as the impossible pieces of a puzzle began forming in her mind. When Marcus emerged from the shower, towel wrapped around his waist, Emma forced herself to act normal. She smiled and asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, and discussed Sophie's upcoming school play. But inside, a cold dread was spreading through her chest like ice water. That night, as Marcus slept peacefully beside her, Emma stared at the ceiling and faced a terrifying truth. The man she had loved and trusted for 8 years might be lying to her about everything. The flowers without a card, the surveillance report, the restaurant receipt, the strange behavior patterns she had been noticing for months. Something was very wrong in her perfect life, and Emma Torres was about to discover just how deep the deception went. The next morning would bring revelations that would shatter everything she believed about love, family, and trust. But tonight, in the darkness of her bedroom, Emma made a promise to herself and to Sophie sleeping down the hall. Whatever was happening, whoever was betraying her trust, she would find the truth. And when she did, they would all learn that underestimating Emma Torres was the biggest mistake of their lives. Don't forget to like this video if you're hooked, and share it with someone who loves powerful stories. Your support helps us bring you more content like this. The truth Emma is about to discover will shock you to your core. Unraveling the truth. The following Friday brought changes that Emma couldn't ignore any longer. Marcus announced over breakfast that he needed to work through the weekend, something that had never happened in their 8 years of marriage. He claimed a major deal required his immediate attention, but his explanation felt rehearsed, like lines memorized for a performance. "Can't it wait until Monday?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice light while Sophie ate her cereal nearby. Sophie was hoping you could help her practice for the school play. Marcus avoided her eyes, focusing intently on his coffee. I wish I could, Em, but this client is flying back to Chicago Sunday night. It's now or never. Emma nodded and smiled, playing the understanding wife. But her mind was cataloging every detail, every inconsistency in his story. The Marcus she married would have moved mountains to avoid missing family time. This stranger wearing her husband's face seemed to have different priorities entirely. After Marcus left and Sophie was safely at school, Emma made a decision that terrified her. She was going to follow him. The thought of spying on her own husband made her feel sick, but the alternative was living in this fog of confusion and doubt. She drove to Marcus's office building and parked across the street, feeling like a character in one of those thriller movies she used to enjoy. But there was nothing entertaining about watching your life fall apart in real time. Marcus's car wasn't in his usual parking spot. According to the security guard she casually spoke with, Mr. Chun had called in sick today. The lie hit her like a physical blow. Emma sat in her car for 10 minutes, trying to process this new information. Marcus had lied directly to her face, had kissed her goodbye while deceiving her about his most basic whereabouts. Where was he really going? What was he really doing? Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. The caller ID showed her mother's name. "Hello, Mom," Emma answered, trying to sound normal. "Emma, darling, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Victoria's voice had that particular tone she used when she wanted something. "I was wondering if you could do me a small favor." "Of course. What do you need?" "I'm having some work done on my house this weekend, and the contractors will need access to the basement. Could you possibly come stay with me? I hate being alone with strangers in the house." Emma frowned. Her mother was one of the most independent people she knew, had lived alone for years since Emma's father passed away. The request seemed completely out of character. "I don't know, Mom. Marcus is working this weekend, and I'd have to bring Sophie." "Oh, that's perfect," Victoria said quickly. "Sophie and I haven't had quality time together in ages. We could make it a girls' weekend." Something about her mother's enthusiasm felt forced, but Emma couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong. "Let me think about it and call you back." "Don't think too long, dear. I really need an answer soon." After hanging up, Emma sat in her car, trying to piece together the strange puzzle her life had become. Marcus was lying about working. Her mother was suddenly needy and requesting overnight visits. The private investigator report. The restaurant receipt. Everything felt connected, but the picture forming in her mind was too horrible to accept. She decided to drive to her mother's house, ostensibly to discuss the weekend visit in person. But really, she needed to see Victoria face to face, to study her expressions and body language for the truth Emma suspected was hiding there. The drive to her childhood home took 90 minutes through winding country roads. The house looked the same as always, a neat colonial with Victoria's prized garden in front. But as Emma pulled into the driveway, she noticed fresh tire tracks in the gravel. Recent tracks from a vehicle much larger than her mother's compact sedan. Victoria opened the door before Emma could knock, almost as if she had been watching for her arrival. "Emma, what a lovely surprise. I wasn't expecting you until this evening." "I wanted to talk about the weekend in person," Emma said, studying her mother's face. Victoria looked nervous, fidgeting with her pearl necklace in a way that indicated stress. "Of course, dear. Come in, come in." The house smelled different. Underneath her mother's usual lavender air freshener was another scent, something masculine and familiar. Emma's heart started racing as she recognized it as Marcus's cologne. "Mom, has someone been here today?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Victoria's hand froze on her necklace. "What do you mean?" "I just noticed tire tracks in the driveway, and the house smells different. Oh, that must be from the contractor. He came by earlier to look at the basement stairs. Victoria's explanation came too quickly, too smoothly, like she had prepared it in advance. Emma walked through the living room, her designer's eye-catching details her mother might have missed. A coffee cup on the side table, still warm. 2 wine glasses in the kitchen. Sink, both recently used. A men's jacket draped over a dining room chair. A jacket Emma recognized because she had given it to Marcus for Christmas last year. The world tilted beneath Emma's feet. Her mother and her husband, the 2 people who were supposed to love and protect her, had been meeting in secret, lying to her face, conspiring against her in ways she was only beginning to understand. "Mom," Emma said, her voice surprisingly steady, "where did this jacket come from?" Victoria followed Emma's gaze to the dining room and went pale. I don't know how that got there. It's Marcus's jacket. I bought it for him." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's face cycled through expressions of panic, guilt, and finally, defiance. "Emma, you don't understand the situation." "Then explain it to me." Victoria sat down heavily in her favorite armchair, suddenly looking older than her 52 years. "Sit down, darling. This is going to be difficult." Emma remained standing, her arms crossed defensively. "I'm listening." "Marcus came to me months ago with concerns about your mental health. He was worried about your increasing anxiety, your mood swings, the way you've been isolating yourself from friends and family." Each word felt like a knife twisting in Emma's chest. "What are you talking about? I don't have mood swings." "He showed me incidents, dear. Times when you've overreacted to small things, when you've seemed unstable. He's been documenting everything because he's worried about Sophie's safety." Emma's mind raced back through recent months, looking for the incidents her mother described. She remembered crying when Sophie fell off her bike and scraped her knee, getting frustrated when Marcus came home 3 hours late without calling, feeling anxious about finances when their savings account seemed to be draining faster than usual. Normal reactions to normal stresses, but apparently Marcus had been portraying them as signs of mental instability. "So you two have been meeting behind my back to discuss my supposed mental health problems?" Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "We've been trying to help you, Emma, but you're so defensive about everything. We knew you'd react badly if we confronted you directly." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that Emma almost found herself doubting her own perceptions. Almost, but the private investigator report had been real. The lies about working had been real. The secret meetings and hidden conversations were real. "What does Marcus want, Mom?" "He wants what's best for Sophie. And for you too, if you'd let us help." Emma walked to the window, looking out at the garden where she had played as a child, where her mother had taught her to plant flowers and pull weeds. How long had Victoria been cultivating this betrayal? How long had she been working against her own daughter? "There's something else, isn't there?" Emma asked, not turning around. "This isn't just about mental health concerns." The silence behind her stretched so long that Emma finally turned to face her mother. Victoria's expression had changed completely, the mask of concerned parent finally slipping away to reveal something cold and calculating underneath. "You always were too smart for your own good," Victoria said quietly. "Even as a child, you asked too many questions, saw too much. Tell me the truth. The truth is that you're not strong enough for the life you've built. You never were. Marcus deserves better than a wife who falls apart at the smallest stress. Sophie deserves a mother who can actually protect her." The cruelty in her mother's voice was breathtaking. Emma realized this wasn't a recent development, wasn't something that had grown out of concern for her well-being. This was years of resentment and manipulation finally coming to light. "How long have you two been planning this?" Victoria stood up, straightening her shoulders. "Planning what, dear?" "Whatever this is." The surveillance, the lies, the secret. Meetings. How long? We're not planning anything. We're trying to save you from yourself. But Emma could see the truth in her mother's eyes, now that she was looking for it. The satisfaction hiding behind the fake concern. The way Victoria couldn't quite suppress a smile when she talked about Marcus deserving better. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Marcus. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. She showed the message to her mother. He's working late, but his office says he called in sick. And his jacket is in your dining room. Where is he really, Mom? The web of lies Emma drove home in a daze. Marcus's jacket on the passenger seat, like evidence of a crime she was still trying to understand. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from Victoria, but Emma ignored each one. She needed time to think, to process what she had discovered, and to figure out her next move. When she arrived home, Sophie was at her friend's house for a sleepover, which gave Emma the privacy she desperately needed. She spread Marcus's jacket on the kitchen table and searched through every pocket methodically. What she found made her stomach turn. A hotel key card from the Grandview Inn, dated 3 days ago. A receipt for jewelry from an expensive boutique, showing a purchase of diamond earrings worth more than Emma made in 2 months. And tucked deep in the inner pocket, a handwritten note in Victoria's distinctive cursive. Tonight changed everything. I can't wait to be free. Emma's hands shook as she photographed each item with her phone. The evidence was mounting, but she still didn't understand the full scope of their plan. She needed more information, and she knew exactly where to find it. Marcus's home office had always been off limits, his private space where he handled business matters. Emma had respected that boundary for 8 years, never questioning his need for privacy. But respect was a luxury she could no longer afford. The office door was locked, but Emma remembered Marcus hiding a spare key in the bookshelf years ago. She found it exactly where he had left it, behind a dusty copy of real estate law that probably hadn't been moved in years. What she discovered in that office destroyed every assumption she had ever made about her marriage, her family, and her own life. Marcus's computer was password protected, but Emma knew him well enough to guess correctly on the 3rd try. Sophie's birth date followed by Victoria's maiden name. The fact that his password included her mother's name made Emma's skin crawl. The email exchanges between Marcus and Victoria went back almost 2 years. 2 years of planning, scheming, and discussing Emma like she was an obstacle to be removed, rather than a daughter and wife to be loved. The early emails were careful, tentative. Marcus complaining about Emma's neediness after her father's death. Victoria agreeing that Emma had always been weak and that Marcus deserved better. But as the months progressed, the conversations became bolder, more intimate, more devastating. Marcus had been slowly draining their joint savings account, transferring money to a private account Emma knew nothing about. The jewelry receipt made sense now. Those diamond earrings weren't for Emma. They were a gift for Victoria, paid for with Emma's inheritance money from her father's life insurance policy. But the financial theft was just the beginning. Emma found folders full of photographs, documents, and recordings that painted a picture so sinister she could barely believe it was real. Marcus had been documenting every moment of what he called Emma's mental decline. Normal reactions to stress had been photographed and described as episodes. Times when Emma had been sad or worried were recorded as evidence of emotional instability. Even moments of joy were twisted into signs of manic behavior. There were photos of Emma crying at her father's funeral, described as excessive emotional. Response: video recordings of her laughing at Sophie's school play, labeled as inappropriate mood elevation. Pictures of her working late on design projects, characterized as obsessive behavior patterns. A most chilling discovery was a medical report from a psychiatrist Emma had never met, Dr. Harrison Webb, The report detailed Emma's supposed history of depression, anxiety, and emotional instability, recommending immediate intervention and possible hospitalization. The report was dated 6 months ago, but Emma had never seen this doctor, never been evaluated, never given permission for any medical assessment. The report was completely fabricated, but it looked official enough to fool a family court judge who didn't look too closely. Emma's phone rang, making her jump. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. She took a deep breath before answering, knowing she had to maintain her facade just a little longer. "Hi, honey," she said, forcing her voice to sound normal. "How's work?" "Going?" "Busy day," Marcus replied smoothly. "The clients are demanding, but I think we're making progress. I'll probably be home around midnight." "That's so late. You've been working such long hours recently." "I know, Em, but this deal could set us up for life. Once it's finished, I'll take some time off, and we can plan that family vacation you've been talking about." The casual lies flowed so easily from his mouth that Emma wondered how long he had been deceiving her. How many other conversations had been filled with false promises and manufactured concern? "That sounds wonderful," Emma said. "Sophie and I will miss you tonight, but we understand." After hanging up, Emma continued her investigation. She found correspondence with divorce attorneys, custody evaluators, and financial advisors. Marcus had been building a case against her for months, creating a narrative where Emma was an unfit mother who needed to be separated from Sophie for everyone's safety. The plan was diabolical in its thoroughness. Marcus would file for divorce, citing Emma's mental health issues. Victoria would provide supporting testimony about Emma's long history of emotional problems. The fabricated medical report would serve as expert evidence. By the time Emma understood what was happening, she would have lost her daughter, her home, and most of her assets. But the most heartbreaking discovery was a series of conversations between Marcus and Sophie. Emma found recordings where Marcus had been carefully planting seeds of doubt about Emma's behavior, asking Sophie leading questions about times when Mommy seemed sad or acted differently. Sophie, innocent and trusting, had answered honestly. About times when Emma had been tired after long work days or worried about family finances. Marcus had twisted these normal parental moments into evidence that Emma was unstable and potentially dangerous to their daughter. Emma sat in that office until nearly dawn, documenting everything she found. She copied files to a secure cloud storage account, photographed documents, and created a detailed timeline of Marcus and Victoria's conspiracy. By the time the sun rose, she had enough evidence to destroy both of their lives. But she also understood that confronting them directly would be useless. They were too prepared, too confident in their plan. Emma needed allies, professionals, who could help her turn the tables on the people who had spent 2 years plotting her destruction. Her first call was to James Rodriguez, a family attorney she had met at a networking event years ago. James had impressed her with his intelligence and integrity, qualities she desperately needed now. "James, this is Emma Torres. I need legal help urgently, and I need complete confidentiality." "Emma, of course. What's going on?" "My husband and mother have been conspiring to steal my assets and take custody of my daughter. They've fabricated medical records and have been building a case to have me declared mentally unfit. I have evidence of everything, but I need professional guidance." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. "Emma, those are serious allegations. Are you certain about what you're saying?" "I have emails, financial records, fabricated medical reports, and recordings. I spent all night documenting their conspiracy. James, they've been planning this for 2 years. Can you come to my office this morning? Bring everything you found. We need to act quickly if what you're telling me is true." Emma's second call was to her bank, requesting an immediate freeze on all joint accounts and credit cards. Her third call was to a private investigator recommended by James, someone who could help her gather additional evidence on maintaining her cover. As Emma prepared to leave for James's office, she caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. The woman looking back was different from the one who had discovered Marcus's jacket just 12 hours ago. This woman had steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. Marcus and Victoria thought they had been so clever, so thorough in their planning. They had underestimated Emma's intelligence, her determination, and her fierce love for her daughter. They had mistaken kindness for weakness, trust for stupidity, and love for vulnerability. Emma grabbed her evidence files and headed for the door. The war for her life and her daughter's future was about to begin, and this time, Emma Torres was ready to fight. The phone buzzed with another call from Victoria, but Emma didn't even glance at it. She was done being the victim in their story. It was time to write her own ending. When Marcus came home that night, expecting to find the same naive, trusting wife he had been manipulating for years, he would instead find a woman who knew exactly who he was and what he had done. The game was changing, and Emma intended to win. Strategic revenge. The meeting with James Rodriguez changed everything for Emma. Sitting in his downtown office, surrounded by law books and case files, she finally understood the magnitude of what Marcus and Victoria had attempted. But more importantly, she learned she had the power to stop them. "Emma, what they've done is criminal," James said, reviewing the evidence she had brought. "The forged medical documents alone constitute fraud. The financial theft, the conspiracy to manipulate custody proceedings. We're looking at multiple felonies here." Emma felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. "What are my options?" "We can file criminal charges, pursue civil damages, and most importantly, we can protect Sophie. But I need you to understand something. Once we start this process, there's no going back. Your marriage will be over. Your relationship with your mother will be destroyed, and this will likely become public." Emma thought of Sophie, innocent and trusting, being manipulated by the two people who should have protected her most. They made that choice when they decided to destroy our family. "I'm ready to fight." James outlined a strategy that was both legally sound and personally satisfying. Rather than confronting Marcus and Victoria directly, they would gather additional evidence while building an airtight case. Emma would continue pretending ignorance while secretly documenting every lie, every manipulation, every illegal act. "The private investigator I'm recommending is discreet and thorough," James explained. "Her name is Detective Carol Washington, retired from the police force. She specializes in domestic fraud cases." Emma's first meeting with Detective Washington took place that same afternoon at a coffee shop across town. Carol was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately put Emma at ease. "I've seen cases like this before," Carol said after reviewing Emma's evidence. "The systematic financial theft, the fabricated medical records, the manipulation of the child. It's textbook predatory behavior. How do we prove it in court? We get them to confess. People like your husband and mother are arrogant. They think they're smarter than everyone else, which makes them careless. We're going to use that arrogance against them." Carol's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Emma would wear a wire during conversations with both Marcus and Victoria, encouraging them to reveal details about their conspiracy. The key was making them feel safe, confident that their plan was working. Meanwhile, Carol would conduct surveillance to document their meetings and activities. She would also investigate the fake psychiatrist, Dr. Harrison Webb, who's fabricated. Report was a crucial part of their custody strategy. "One more thing," Carol said as they prepared to leave. "Your mother and husband are going to escalate their timeline once they realize you're getting suspicious. We need to be ready for them to make their move quickly." That evening, Emma put on the performance of her life. When Marcus came home from his supposed work meeting, she greeted him with a smile and his favorite dinner. She had changed into a dress he had once complimented, styled her hair the way he preferred, and created the perfect image of a loving, unsuspecting wife. "You look beautiful tonight," Marcus said, kissing her cheek. But Emma could see the calculation behind his eyes, the way he was studying her face for signs of suspicion. "I wanted to do something special," Emma replied. "I've been thinking about what you said about me being stressed lately. Maybe I should see someone about it." Marcus's interest sharpened immediately. "Really? You'd be willing to talk to a professional?" "I think it might help. Do you know anyone good?" "I trust your judgment." Emma watched as Marcus tried to contain his excitement. This was exactly what he had been hoping for. If Emma voluntarily sought psychiatric help, it would support his narrative about her mental instability. "Actually, I do know someone excellent. Dr. Harrison Webb. He's very understanding, very discreet." Emma's blood ran cold, but she kept her expression neutral. Marcus was actually suggesting she see the psychiatrist who had already written a fake report about her mental health. The audacity was breathtaking. "That sounds perfect. Could you set up an appointment for me?" "Of course, honey. I'll call him first thing in the morning." As they ate dinner, Marcus seemed more relaxed than he had in weeks. He talked about future plans, about how much better things would be once Emma got the help she needed. Every word was recorded by the wire Emma wore, every lie documented for. The case James was building. The next day brought a call from Victoria, sounding more desperate than Emma had ever heard her. "Emma, darling, we need to talk. There are things about your marriage you don't understand." "What do you mean, Mom?" "Can you come over today? It's important." Emma agreed, knowing this was likely the confrontation Carol had predicted. Victoria was going to try to manipulate the situation, probably to test how much Emma knew or suspected. The drive to Victoria's house felt different this time. Emma was no longer the confused, hurt daughter seeking answers. She was a woman with a plan, armed with knowledge and legal support. The wire Carol had given her was concealed beneath her sweater, and she had prepared herself mentally for whatever manipulations Victoria might attempt. Victoria answered the door looking haggard, her usual perfect appearance disheveled. Come in, come in. We have so much to discuss." The house smelled like wine, and Emma noticed an empty bottle on the kitchen counter. Victoria was nervous, possibly drunk, which could work to Emma's advantage. "Mom, you sounded upset on the phone." "What's wrong?" Victoria led Emma to the living room, wringing her hands. "I've been wrestling with my conscience, darling. There are things I need to tell you about Marcus." Emma settled into the familiar armchair, preparing herself for whatever twisted version of the truth Victoria was about to present. "He came to me months ago with concerns about your behavior," Victoria began, launching into the same story she had tried before. But this time, there were new details, more elaborate lies designed to make Emma doubt her own sanity. "He showed me videos, Emma, videos of you having conversations with people who weren't there. Times when you seemed completely disconnected from reality." Emma's heart raced, but not from fear, from anger. Victoria was describing symptoms of severe mental illness, trying to convince Emma that she was experiencing psychotic episodes she couldn't remember. "I don't remember having conversations with people who weren't there," Emma said carefully. "That's the point, dear. People in your condition often don't remember their episodes. Marcus has been protecting you, trying to get you help without embarrassing you publicly." The gaslighting was so sophisticated, so carefully constructed, that Emma could see how it might have worked on someone without her current knowledge and support system. "Where are these videos?" Emma asked. Victoria hesitated. "Marcus has them. He's been documenting everything for the doctors." "I'd like to see them." "I don't think that's a good idea." It might be too traumatic for you to see yourself in that state. Emma pushed harder, using techniques Carol had taught her. Mom, if I'm really as sick as you're saying, shouldn't I know the full extent of my condition? How can I get better if I don't understand what's wrong with me? Victoria's composure cracked slightly. It's complicated, Emma. There are legal considerations. Legal considerations? If your condition affects your ability to care for Sophie, there might need to be temporary custody arrangements. Just until you're better. There it was. The real plan, finally spoken aloud and recorded. Victoria had just confessed to conspiring to take custody of Sophie based on fabricated evidence of mental illness. Emma spent another hour in that house, drawing out more details, getting Victoria to describe the extent of the conspiracy. By the time she left, she had recorded enough evidence to destroy both Victoria and Marcus in court. That night, Marcus came home with news that would have terrified the old Emma, but only strengthened her resolve. I spoke with Dr. Webb today, he said over dinner. He can see you tomorrow afternoon. I think it's important we move quickly on getting you the help you need. Thank you for caring so much about me, Emma replied, squeezing his hand. I'm lucky to have a husband who looks out for me. Marcus squeezed back, probably thinking about how easy this was going to be, how perfectly his plan was falling into place. But Emma was thinking about something else entirely. She was thinking about justice, about protecting Sophie, and about the moment when Marcus and Victoria would finally understand that they had chosen the wrong woman to destroy. The appointment with Dr. Webb would be her final piece of evidence. Once she had him on record trying to support his fabricated diagnosis, James could file both criminal and civil charges that would end this nightmare forever. Emma Torres had spent her entire life being underestimated, being seen as weak and naive, and trusting. But weakness had been her disguise, not her nature. And tomorrow, Marcus and Victoria would learn the difference. The trap was set, the evidence was gathered, and Emma was ready for the final confrontation that would determine the future of her family. But first, she had one more performance to give. One more day of pretending to be the victim while she prepared to become the victor. Justice served. The appointment with Dr. Harrison Webb was scheduled for 2 p.m. at his private practice downtown. Emma arrived 15 minutes early, wearing the wire Carol had provided and carrying a small purse that contained backup recording equipment. This would be the final piece of evidence she needed to destroy Marcus and Victoria's conspiracy. Dr. Webb's office was exactly what Emma expected from a corrupt psychiatrist willing to fabricate medical reports. Expensive furniture, impressive, diplomas on the walls, and an air of authority designed to intimidate vulnerable patients. But Emma was no longer vulnerable. Mrs. Torres, please come in, Dr. Webb said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. He was a thin man in his 60s with cold gray eyes and a smile that never reached them. Your husband has told me so much about you. Has he? Emma settled into the chair, placing her purse carefully to ensure optimal recording quality. What exactly did Marcus tell you? Dr. Webb consulted a thick file that Emma knew contained fabricated information about her mental health history. He's very concerned about your recent behavior patterns. The mood swings, the paranoid thoughts, the difficulty maintaining relationships. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I appreciate his concern, but I'm curious about something. This file you're reading from looks quite comprehensive. When exactly did you compile all this information about me? Dr. Webb's confidence faltered slightly. Over the course of several consultations with your husband and mother-in-law. Mother, not mother-in-law. Victoria is my mother. Of course. My apologies. Emma leaned forward. Doctor, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know you've never evaluated me before today. I know this file contains fabricated information designed to support custody case. And I know you're being paid by my husband and mother to create false documentation about my mental health." The color drained from Dr. Webb's face. "Mrs. Torres, I think you're confused. These are standard assessment procedures." "Are they?" "Because I have here a copy of the psychiatric evaluation you wrote about me 6 months ago." Emma pulled a folder from her purse. "The evaluation where you diagnosed me with severe depression, anxiety disorders, and recommended immediate intervention. The evaluation you wrote without ever meeting me." Dr. Webb's hands began to shake. "I don't know what you're talking about. I also have recordings of my husband and mother discussing payments to you for these services. Would you like me to play them?" The silence in the office was deafening. Dr. Webb realized his carefully constructed fraud was collapsing around him. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to write a detailed confession explaining exactly what my husband and mother asked you to do. I want documentation of every payment you received and every false report you created. And I want you to understand that if you don't cooperate, you'll be facing criminal charges for medical fraud." 20 minutes later, Emma left Dr. Webb's office with a signed confession that detailed the entire conspiracy. The corrupt psychiatrist had documented everything, hoping to minimize his own legal exposure by cooperating fully. Emma's next stop was Sophie's school. Her daughter was in the middle of art class, completely unaware that her world was about to change forever. Emma made arrangements with the principal to pick Sophie up early, explaining that there was a family emergency that required immediate attention. "Is everything okay, Mommy?" Sophie asked as they walked to the car. "You look different today." Emma knelt down to her daughter's eye level. "Sophie, we need to have a very important conversation. Some things are going to change in our family, but I want you to know that no matter what happens, I love you more than anything in this world." Sophie's eyes filled with concern. "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" The question hit Emma like a physical blow. Her 7-year-old daughter had been aware of problems Emma thought she had hidden successfully. "Why would you ask that, sweetheart?" "Daddy's been asking me questions about when you act sad or angry. And Grandma Victoria said, maybe I might need to come live with her for a while if you get too sick." Emma's heart broke and burst into flames simultaneously. They had been preparing Sophie for this moment, conditioning her to accept separation from her mother as necessary and normal. "Sophie, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am not sick. I am not going anywhere. And you are not going to leave with Grandma Victoria. Daddy and Grandma have been telling lies, and I'm going to make sure those lies can't hurt our family anymore." That evening, Emma put Sophie to bed early and waited for Marcus to come home. James Rodriguez was parked across the street with Detective Carol Washington, ready to provide support if the confrontation became dangerous. Emma had also alerted the local police that she might need assistance with a domestic situation. Marcus arrived home at 8:30, carrying flowers and wearing the same false smile he had perfected over the past 2 years. "Hey, beautiful," he sighed, kissing Emma's cheek. "How was your appointment with Dr. Webb?" Emma turned to face him, and Marcus immediately noticed the change in her expression. The mask of naive trust was gone, replaced by something cold and determined. "It was very educational," Emma said. "Dr. Webb and I had a fascinating conversation about medical ethics and the legal consequences of falsifying psychiatric evaluations." Marcus went very still. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fake medical report you paid him to write 6 months ago. I'm talking about the 2-year conspiracy you've been running with my mother to steal my money and take custody of Sophie. I'm talking about the surveillance, the forged documents, and the systematic campaign to destroy my reputation and my sanity." Marcus's face cycled through expressions of surprise, denial, and finally, cold calculation. "Emma, You're being paranoid again. This is exactly the kind of thinking that worries me about your mental health. Emma reached into her purse and pulled out a digital recorder. Would you like to hear your conversation with Victoria from last Tuesday? The one where you discussed the timeline for filing divorce papers and how much money you've already transferred to your private account. Marcus lunged forward, trying to grab the recorder, but Emma stepped back quickly. I wouldn't do that, Marcus. James Rodriguez is parked outside with Detective Washington, and I've already provided copies of all evidence to the police. The front door opened, and James entered with Detective Washington and 2 uniformed officers. Marcus looked around the room like a trapped animal, finally understanding that his carefully constructed plan had collapsed completely. Marcus Chun, Detective Washington said, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and child endangerment. As the officers handcuffed Marcus, he looked at Emma with pure hatred. You think you've won? Victoria will get custody. She'll poison Sophie against you. You'll never see your daughter again. Emma smiled for the first time in weeks. Actually, Victoria is being arrested at her house right now. Dr. Webb's confession implicated her in everything. Fabricated. Medical reports, the financial conspiracy, even the plan to manipulate Sophie. She be facing the same charges you are. The next few hours passed in a blur of police statements, legal proceedings, and phone calls. James had prepared Emma for the immediate aftermath, but nothing could have prepared her for the relief she felt as Marcus and Victoria were processed through the criminal justice system. Sophie woke up during the commotion and had to be gently explained why her father was being taken away by police officers. Emma held her daughter close, promising that things would be difficult for a while, but that they would face everything together. 3 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of their home on Willowbrook Street, making breakfast for Sophie before school. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, as if a poison had been drawn from the air itself. Marcus had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud and embezzlement. Victoria received 3 years for her role in the conspiracy. Dr. Webb lost his medical license and faced his own criminal charges. The private investigator who had conducted surveillance on Emma was also under investigation for his role in the illegal activities. Emma had recovered most of the stolen money and had used part of it to start a non-profit organization that helped other women who had been victims of domestic financial fraud. Her graphic design business was thriving, and she had discovered a strength and confidence she never knew she possessed. Sophie was adjusting well to their new life, though she still had questions about why her father and grandmother had done such terrible things. Emma answered those questions as honestly as she could, always emphasizing that none of it was Sophie's fault, and that sometimes adults make very bad choices that hurt the people they're supposed to love. Mommy, Sophie said over breakfast, I'm proud of you for being so brave. Emma smiled, thinking about the woman she had been just 6 months ago. The woman who had believed she was lucky to be tolerated, who had accepted cruelty disguised as love, who had nearly lost everything to people who saw her kindness as weakness. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more dangerous to those who might try to harm her family.